Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Gainesville meeting at the Cade Museum. Please remember to silence your cell phone. And if you are watching on YouTube, please remember to register your participation by sending an email to info@rotarygainesville.org. And now with our song and pledge, welcome back the trio, Lori Vidal, Brendan Shortley, and Tom Collette.
Thank you. This is just an attempt to spread out the embarrassment, so thank you. All right, so we're singing today America the Beautiful. Gordon, you ready? All right. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God sent his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Nobody went up with me. All right, Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to have to put a tip jar up here for the band. And now with our invocation, Lori Vidal.
We will take cards as well. Let us pray. What an amazing reality is contained in the complexity and diversity of the natural world that surrounds us. As we survey our surroundings in our backyards, we're astounded by the beauty of the hawks and the owls, the pileated woodpeckers, and the eagle. And then there is the bat. Great memories as the sun is setting on a summer evening, playing with friends and watching the bats hard at work, feasting in the air, creating a sense of fear and awe when we get an up-close and personal look at the bat. We marvel again today at your creative handiwork, and we are thankful for those who seek to protect these unique expressions of what you have made. I pray with thanksgiving for our special world. Amen.
Thank you, Lori. You may be seated. If you're a guest or visiting Rotarian, please remain standing. We'll have a microphone come around for introduction.
Hi, I'm Kent Walker, and I would like to introduce my guest today, Dr. Jeff Slaughton, who is a recently retired dentist, and great guy. So I said, you got to come check us out.
Welcome. Okay, I think that's it. Glad to have you join us today. And now for an announcement, please welcome Ryan Thompson to the podium.
Good afternoon. On your tables, I put a little flyer. The Gainesville Opportunity Center. You'll recall last year we helped them build a beautiful new kitchen, their new facility. They're really looking for support for their bike day on May 18th. You can volunteer. You can even walk if you don't want to bike, but you could do a little lap around Depot Park or all the way to Hawthorne and back. It's really up to you. Just let me know if you're interested. Really love to show them our support as we continue to support the Gainesville Opportunity Center. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. And now, without further ado, please welcome our president, Linda Reinhardt.
All right, just a couple of quick additional announcements. First of all, if you have not checked your email, the Sunrise Club sent out an email this morning. They are a little bit behind the 8 ball, but they are working on the dictionary project. They are going to be doing the labeling this afternoon. The details are in that email. And then they are looking for volunteers to sign up to help deliver the dictionaries to the various elementary schools so that we can continue our Rotary tradition of providing dictionaries for all 3rd graders in the school system. So they are working on that. If you are interested, if you did not get the email, you can come see me. I can put you in contact with them, or feel free to reach out to Dorothy Zimmerman directly, who's coordinating that on behalf of the Sunrise Club. Also, wanted to let everybody know, District Conference is coming up May 3rd and 4th. If you've never been to a District 6970 conference, lots of fun, lots of great opportunities to meet other Rotarians in the area. It's going to be at the University of North Florida this year, and registration is open for a little bit longer. So I do encourage anybody to go and take part in that event. It's a great opportunity to really help you engage with other Rotarians and learn more about what Rotary is about. Also want to give everybody a heads up. We have a conflict with the CADE for the May 14th meeting. They are unable to host us on that day, but never fear. We're going on the road. We are going to the new event center out at Celebration Point is going to host us on that day. It is the youth speech contest, so it was important for us to find a location where we could actually have the kids come and give their speeches. If you've been here for that, it's a great program. So May 14th, we'll be out at the new event center, and the staff has offered to give tours following the meeting if anybody's interested in seeing that new facility as well while we're out there. So more details to come, but just start thinking about the fact May 14th at the new event center. And with that, I'm going to bring up Lisa to introduce today's speaker.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have the pleasure today of introducing Brian Pope, the director of Lubee Bat Conservancy. He is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and has a bachelor's in science from Penn State in biology. He worked with the Pittsburgh Zoo, the Disney Animal Kingdom, and in 2011, he became the director of Lubee. With over 30 years of bat experience, numerous published articles on animal husbandry, enrichment, and medical management, Brian is extremely passionate about working to further Lubee's status right here in Gainesville as a global leader in bat welfare, conservation, and education. Please, let's give Brian a warm welcome, our speaker today.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And do I have some kind of a clicker? Yeah, so I can go through. Perfect. Before Lisa and the folks here told you guys about Lubee, how many people have heard of Lubee before? Awesome. Whenever I came back to Lubee in 2007, I took over as curator. And I remember I was talking to somebody, a couple people, and they said, aren't you guys like a cult or a farm? And I'm thinking, okay, we need to do a little bit more education we were doing at the time. So it's nice to know that the word's getting out. How many people, I love seeing that many hands because that tells me that we are on the right track. How many people have ever been to Lubee before? Okay, not too bad, not too bad. All right, well, like I said, I'm going to talk just about Lubee today, but really what we do globally, because we got projects right now in quite a few countries, but also our local impact here and what Lubee does in the local community. So could I have my presentation pulled up? There, perfect, perfect. Excellent. So our mission, we are a nonprofit dedicated to saving bats in their habitats through conservation, education, awareness with a focus on children and community engagement. So we added that last part not too long ago because I think it really is important to talk about what we do with children and communities as a whole. We really need to get kids excited about conservation. I like the words that were said before. That was great. Our natural world, Earth Day was yesterday. We really want to get people excited about it, not just bats, but the natural world in general. We are, so whenever I gave this presentation to Lisa, it needs updated. It says we also one of the largest and most diverse collection of bats in the world, over 150 bats. Actually, as of this afternoon, that's going to read 201 bats. We just brought in 30 from the Minnesota Zoo last night. I went and got them at Jacksonville Zoo. and we're getting 21 more today. And by the end of the year, we're probably going to add another 40. Lisa was asking me, why are you, what's with the bats? Why are you guys acquiring them? Unfortunately, there are a lot of zoos and other institutions that just don't want them anymore. And I've heard things from space and cost to they're not as big and charismatic. And these bats need a place to go, and we're happy to bring some in. So by the end of the year, we're going from 150 to close to about 250 bats. We are a leader in bat husbandry, welfare, breeding, and medical management. We are an accredited facility with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and it's a very rigorous process we go through every 5 years. So Disney's Animal Kingdom is AZA accredited, Columbus Zoo, San Diego, so some of the biggest in the country are AZA accredited, Lubee is as well. July 31st will be our 35-year anniversary, and all 35 years have been here in Gainesville, so very proud of that, and we fund conservation programs in over 25 countries. So our purposes are three core institutional purposes: conservation, education, animal welfare. We want to connect children with nature, foster a sense of environmental stewardship, and as I was saying, we want to get kids excited. We want to inspire kids, bringing them out to Lubee. And I'll talk about some of our educational tours and things that we do, but trying to get the next generation excited. But really, we'd be nowhere without our bats. And a lot of the pictures you're going to see were taken with our bats at Lubee. We make sure that welfare is held to the highest standard, and the animals at Lubee receive the best care possible. Here's a picture of some of our animals, and as you can see, one of them is not a bat, but we have more than just bats at Lubee. We have a few reptiles out there that needed some homes. In my background, I'm from, I say Pittsburgh, but I'm a Steelers fan, if there's any Steelers fans out there. About an hour southeast. I grew up in a very rural area, and I was that kid that flipped over every rock, got bit by every snake that he tried to catch. And I've always had a passion for reptiles, so we do have a few reptiles at Lubee. So, I am going to be quizzing you guys, so we'll see what your knowledge is about bats. But what are bats? Well, really, when it comes down to it, they're mammals, and they're the only mammals that can fly. Their Latin name is Chiroptera, for hand wing. You can see, this is a good shot of one of the bats at Lubee, and you can see where the hand is. I mean, it's just a very large hand, skin in between the fingers, and a big piece of skin that goes from the pinky down to the ankle. But they are mammals, just like us. Anybody want to take a guess how many species of bats there are in the world? 63? Anything else? There are 1,420 plus species and counting. And they account for about 20% of all mammal species. So I'm going to throw this out there. How many species in 1996? You don't have to worry about it. But that's whenever I first started working with bats, was in 1996. And at the time, there were about 920 known. So here we have, in close to 30 years, over 500 new species have been identified. So some of them have been reclassified, like the Florida bonneted bat, which is found here in South Florida, that is an endangered species. Some of them museum specimens, but some of them have been discoveries, like this guy called the pied bat that they found in 39, thought was extinct, and rediscovered back in 2013. Quiz time. What are bats more closely related to? Anybody want to take a guess? Mice? Anything else? BoJack Horseman. I've never watched the cartoon. I've Googled like cartoon horse and it came up. But anyway, they are more closely related to horses than any other mammals. So here is a tree of bats, of all mammals. I don't know if you can see it, but right here, that's where the bats are. Just up above them, they're called parasidactyls. They are the odd-toed ungulates. You have horses, zebras, rhinos, tapirs as well. Up here are the carnivores, so there's your cat, and way over here are your rodents, and that's us down there. There's the humans. So a lot of people think of bats as flying mice, flying rodents. They're not even closely related to them. They're in their own order, but the animals that they're more closely related to are your horses, your carnivores. And if you look up top where you'll see it's called certiodactyls, they are your even-toed ungulates and also whales. They are classified together. So what about myths? I'll go through these. I know my time is limited. Do they have rabies? No. Can they get it? Yes. But so can we. Any kind of mammal can get rabies. Are they blind? Nope. They have rods and cones in their eyes. They echolocate at night just as a better means of getting around, but all bats have great eyesight. Did they get caught in your hair? No. Humans are kind of filthy, and we have a lot of insects around us, so if a bat's flying around you at night, it's probably just trying to get some insects. So let's talk about importance. Let's talk about our bats here in Florida. They eat a lot of mosquitoes and a lot of agricultural crops. There was a study done, the U.S. Geological Survey, back in 2011, that showed bats save farmers anywhere between $3.7 and $53 billion annually by eating agricultural pests and reducing the need for pesticides. Rainforest reforestation, they've done studies in Central America and Southeast Asia and shown that whenever the forests get cut down, the primary plants that come up, 90% of those are planted by bats, whether they're eating the fruit and passing the seeds or they're spitting them out. So when it comes to rainforest reforestation, no other animals can do what bats can do because they are flying. And the fruit bats like we have at Lubee, these are pictures that were taken at Lubee. They contribute billions to the global economy, basically from pollination and seed dispersal. So any one of the crops that you see there at the bottom, bats are responsible for spreading the seeds or pollinating the flowers. Let's talk about how they're doing. Not well. About 25% of global bat species are threatened with extinction. That's actually 40% of bat species here in the United States are considered threatened with extinction. In the past 150 years, 9 have gone extinct, including the Guam flying fox, which was eaten to extinction, and also the Christmas Island pipistrelle, which is an island chain northwest of Australia that really they just didn't pay any attention to it. Next thing they knew, it was extinct. Some of the threats of deforestation, but as I mentioned, they hunt them, and it's a cultural thing in a lot of African and Asian countries, and we work with a lot of hunters. A lot of the best conservationists out there are hunters, but it's the poachers that are the problem. It's whenever you are harvesting these animals and there's no limits on them, and then you come to find out that a lot of the crops that these people depend on are the same animals that they are continuing to hunt without any controls and limits. Has anybody ever heard of a disease here in the United States called white nose syndrome? Wow, okay. So white nose syndrome is one of the worst things that happened to North American mammal species since the bison were basically wiped out. This is a fungus that really came over from Europe, and what it does is it affects bats that go into a true hibernation. So we do not have any bats here in Florida that go into a true hibernation, but it's a fungus that it does a lot, and I'll talk about it a little bit, but it really wakes them up whenever they're supposed to be hibernating. It doesn't affect any other mammals, like bears that hibernate in caves or humans, but it gets on their wings, it gets on their muzzles, and it essentially wakes them up. They fly around at night because they're hungry and they were just woken up. They deplete their fat reserves and they starve or they freeze to death. It also affects their respiratory and immune systems. So this actually needs to be updated as well. It's now found in 39 states, 8 Canadian provinces. Ground zero, it's kind of hard to see, was up in a cave in New York. And some of the worst hit states are Pennsylvania, New York, and Vermont. But it's killed millions and millions of bats. But there is some good luck. They're finding these bats are getting a little bit more resistant to it. So it's the bigger bats with more muscle and more fat seem to be a little bit more resistant. But it's killed millions of animals, and it's really taken a toll, especially in the eastern United States. So what do we do? So let's talk about some of our global impact and some of the projects that we have right now. Again, in 35 years, we have funded work in over 25 countries. And really, the animals are going to be central to it, but whenever you go over to these other areas, they want something out of it. Now, you have to work with the communities if you're going to have any kind of conservation involvement, because they're really going to be the ones working these projects. I remember for years I was trying to fund a project in Fiji. We literally had the money. I just needed somebody to write a grant to do the work, and they wouldn't work with me at all because they had no idea who I was. They thought I was just some other American that was going to come in there, get the data, and leave. So we did wind up working with them, but it really took some colleagues of mine in Australia who had worked with them in the past and basically said, you can trust this guy, but you have to work with the local communities, and there are a lot of factors that are positively influenced by these projects. So I'll talk about a few briefly. Madagascar has been a good one that we've had success for sustainably for years. They have really deforested the hell out of that country. About 90% of the original rainforest or forest in general are gone. Conservation education is desperately needed. So we put together a program with another NGO that was over there that worked with these communities, and there are these 3 major bat roosts in the north central area of the country, and we knew that they were hunting this area, but we worked with the NGO and the communities. And what we did is we provided some seed funding and created some fire breaks around these major roosts. And we also worked with some women's groups and the NGO to teach them sustainable agricultural techniques. And what they wound up doing is they were given a certain amount of seed crops. And they planted them on the outside of these fire breaks, and anything, they had to give back what they were given in their products. Anything else they could put into the markets. And what this paid for over years was this sustainable project where we had community involvement. We were able to work with some women's groups that were there, taught them sustainable agricultural techniques, and it wound up, we had a lot of success with habitat protection, jobs created, and the way that the sexes work over there. The women are not out in the field, the men are, but the men were out in the field patrolling the forest, making sure the forests weren't getting cut down, protecting these bat roosts, while the women's were the ones in the fields working these gardens with the seeds that they were given. And because of this project, we were able to build some schools over there and make this a very good, sustainable project. It's been going on for years and years. They still hunt these bats over there because they really do hunt them, but there's also quotas on what they can take, and they can't hunt them during maternity season. And it's nice to see this holistic approach with getting communities involved. The numbers of bats have increased. Their crops are doing a lot better because they actually have the animals pollinating them. We're able to build schools, empower women groups, and protect some of the forests. So this area is pretty near and dear to my heart. There are 5 species of bats in the Solomon Islands. You could see that, the circle up northeast of Australia. I don't know why. I first heard about these bats in '96. I just thought they were interesting. They're not like the big flying foxes we have at Lubee, although they're pretty big bats, but they're a little bit different. We started fundraising and awareness campaigns in 2014, worked with our colleagues over in the University of Queensland, some community conservation groups. And the bat on the far left, because of some of these projects, it was the first time in 3 years they've seen it. The bat to the right, the first time I've seen that. The Guadalcanal monkey-faced bat for the first time in 25 years. And it's led to the first formally protected areas in this country. In the entire country, they didn't have any protected forests. And because of this project, we've been able to get some protected areas. So this Friday, I'm actually going back to fund another project that we've been working with for years and years. It's this little village on the island of Vangunu, and they don't have electricity in these areas. And these communities that are there heavily depend on the forest. So again, this isn't just about the bats. It's about the people that are there, the wildlife there as communities. And anything about 800 meters and below, they are really logging in the Solomon Islands. All that timber is going to China, by the way. And there's just no stopping it, and the government's pro-logging. So right now, what we're paying for is court costs for them to hire lawyers to fight these logging companies and to work with some of their community members to stop giving away their land rights, because there's high levels of biodiversity and endemism. Endemism means these animals are found nowhere else in these areas in the Solomons, and we are helping them to fight these companies. And what's pretty cool is back in October, back October of last year, all the logging companies have pulled out. So we were funding rangers to go out in the field with nonviolent approaches to make sure that they don't cross this river and get into the forests. There may have been some malfunctions with their machinery, but I do not have any specifics, and I'll leave it at that. But it was nice to see that, maybe a little bit, that this is working. Now, I know that they're going to have another court battles in June 18th through the 24th, and that's what the funding we're going to be sending them. And I tell you what, a little bit of money goes a long way, and it's nice to see these communities banding together to fight these logging companies and really the countries that are getting these some of the most rarest hardwoods in the world. Some other projects. The one on the left is also a great one. I know my time's limited, so I'll try not to go off on too much of a tangent. We have these bats at Lubee. They're called Roderick's fruit bats. They look like a cross between an Ewok, a teddy bear, and a Pomeranian. They're just these little fluffball bats. In the 70s, there was only about 70-some of them left in the whole world. And then it's just deforestation. This island's found on the east coast of Madagascar, where the dodo is found. And really back in the mid-90s, there was one woman, her name is Mary Jane Rabuti, got sick of seeing her island deforested. So she started this grassroots environmental organization and just going on radio programs, getting volunteers involved. Philly Zoo got involved in the mid-90s. We came along shortly after that. And this is something every year we're funding. It's another community-run organization. And this has led to these bats going from about 70 in the whole world to about 20,000. This has created jobs, and Mary Jane Rabuti's passed on the torch to a woman named Liliana Ali, who really works with the Mauritian government to fund works with the Mauritian government to really facilitate these projects. It's involved in a lot of retirees in the area, a lot of community members, a lot of children as well, to replant the island, to study these animals, and it's just a wonderful project that I love that Lubee's a part of. The one next to it, Bougainville monkey-faced bat. It's an island off of Papua New Guinea where we are funding people to just try to locate these animals to see if they even exist, take this information back to the government and declare it a key biodiversity area. And then here in Fiji, we just wrapped this one up, Fiji and New Caledonia, where we were again plotting where these animals are found, if they are found, to try to take that information back to create these key biodiversity areas. Same thing in Kenya right now. We have a pretty good project going there. So what do we do in Florida? So one of the things we do is a lot of wildlife surveys, not just bats, but we do other wildlife surveys as well, although we focus on bats. But we do put up bat houses And people always ask, why do I want a bat house? Well, really, you're giving bats a place to live and raise their young, but it keeps them out of buildings. And we see the deforestation around here in Gainesville and Alachua County, in Florida in general. So these animals have nowhere to go. Bats will live in buildings. Not every species. We have about 13 in the state, but some of them will live in buildings. It keeps them out of buildings, and I'd mentioned insect control, and also helps out the farmers. To date, and again, this is, we just put in another house Friday, so we put in 147 bat houses from Macon, Georgia, all the way down to South Florida. We got an occupancy rate of about 86%, and average time to occupancy about 5 months. Sometimes it could take years. We've had bats within 2 weeks. We've had bats within a couple years, but we've had a lot of success with it, which is pretty cool. And here's some of the bats we normally see. These are the bats that are found in the University of Florida bat houses. Mostly 95-98% of them Mexican free-tailed bats, although we have a couple other species as well. By the way, how many are in those bat houses? And it's going to multiply as the moms are actually starting to give birth right now. How many are in those houses that are at UVF? What's that? 250,000. That's pretty good. That's one of the better guesses, but actually about 500,000. And so it is the largest inhabited bat houses in the world. There are a lot of bats in that area. So let's just talk about some of our awareness campaigns. This is one of the best things we can do, is to reach people on social media. So combined, outside of San Diego Zoo, we have the largest social media following of any zoological institution in the world. So on the left, that was taken from a page. I put together a big report for our donors about last year at this time. 2020 was pretty rough to be a bat conservation organization for obvious reasons. We've had a lot of good donors come in, 21, 22. 23 was a pretty good year for us. And I put together a report about what we've been able to do with their generosity. And one of the best things we could do, these conservation programs are great, and I love that we're a part of them, but it's spreading the word about bats, giving talks like this, or our social media reach. So I want to talk about one video. I'm not if anybody were to know me personally, I don't have a big impact on social media. I'm not on there a lot. It's not my thing. So we hired a 19-year-old female a couple years ago to be in charge of our social media. And she said, I got a couple ideas. And years ago, whenever I was running our social media, I'm thinking, okay, cool, I'm going to put this information out there. We're saving these bats from extinction. We're working with this community. People are getting excited. I'd get like no likes, like nobody care. She put together, this was in December of 22. It's an 8-second video of our bat yawning, and this is one of our big bats. So these guys right here, you come to Lubee, they wingspans about 5.5, 6 feet. They're enormous. So we have a video of our bat hee-hee, which he's yawning, making squeaking sounds. It's an 8-second video. I tried for years trying to put stuff out there about our conservation programs. Nobody cared. 8-second video, got 347 million views. I don't know, 22 million emojis, whatever they are, 2.5 million shares, 246,000 comments. So as the 21st most watched TikTok video. Whether you're a fan of TikTok or not, I don't care. I know it's passing through the house right now. It's huge for organizations like us. It is huge because it helps to get the word out there. So that 2.6 million followers we have, every day they get to see our bats and learn a little bit about them. This was taken from another page, and this is why it matters. Might be hard to read, but I got a lot of comments that I used to hate bats, and thanks to you guys, now I have a different view of them. My husband would kill any bat he found. Now he sees them in a different way. So these kind of videos, these short clips, which, by the way, she's done a fantastic job. There's no way I would be in charge of it. But these kind of comments matter, whether it's bats, whether it's all these other misunderstood animals that matter, that has a place in this world. As we said in the beginning with our natural world, this kind of stuff matters, and the social media is huge for us right now. So quickly, I'll just go over local impact. We do tours and outreach programs all year. It doesn't matter who you are. We just had Girl Scouts out getting a badge this past Saturday. We've had partnerships with Big Brothers Big Sisters, A Girls Place, Gigi's Playhouse, and veterans groups as well. We do regular presentations, Alachua County libraries. We're always doing events. Our virtual classrooms, Zoom and social media live chats are huge. Our Lubee live chats on TikTok and Instagram is another good one for us. It gets viewership rate, and these are weekly, between 25,000 and 100,000, which is just great. And for anybody who hasn't been out there, we're on 40 acres of just beautiful Florida country. It took me 25 minutes to get here. We're about 5 miles south of Brooker. We've been doing a lot of work. We just opened up an open-air education center in our bat barn, which is fantastic for gatherings. We have numerous events at Lubee, photo days, painting with bats. Yoga's been really popular. And even though we're private, we do host tours, but we wanted to be open a little bit more, so we have these things called Batter Days of Summer, 1 day a year. And then our big day, if anybody's been out to Bat Fest, this is our single biggest day of the year. This year, it's always in a Gators bye week. There's no way we're going to compete against a Gator game. But it's one of the biggest events, fall events in North Central Florida. We had about 120 vendors last year. We had 14 breweries. The breweries have been great to us. One home brew club, I think 12 to 15 food vendors. My wife's in charge of it. She does a fantastic job. 120 plus vendors, huge kid zone. We had over 5,000 people last year, which was absolutely enormous. So hoping we're going to have something even better this year. It's just some of the impacts. At 23, we had over 30,000 people visit Lubee. So if you're looking at Florida, 17% from Alachua County, and then 83 from the others, people from 23 states, Canada, Netherlands, you can see it. A lot of money invested in our local economy. And our tours right now, and a lot of this is because of that one TikTok video, and it's just going viral. We're booked through September with private tours. And I mean, the request for people for private tours and events is getting pretty huge. And because of that, we've been doing a lot of facility improvements. Just new roofs, our education center in Bat Barn. Oak Hollow, every year, past couple of years, we started from the beginning of property and worked our way down. Like, how can we make this better? You know, when people come here, the private tours, they're not cheap. And I want people to really enjoy their time. So we opened up 33,000 square feet of area that was just kind of overgrown brush under these oak trees that are hundreds of years old. So it's fantastic for Bat Fest and events. It's really gone over well. We have nature play areas, a lot of pollinator areas. But what I really like is we're finding that people aren't just going to visit Lubee when they're in Gainesville. They're making this a destination. We have people that are specifically making this a place for their families to come and visit, which is fantastic. It used to be, I'm going to be in Gainesville. I'll come check you guys out. Now we're one of the reasons they're coming here. Here's just some of the other things I had on here. This is an infographic we have. Over 700 bats have been born at Lubee. We usually hit about 40 schools per year. 25 endangered species have benefited from our programs. Over 800 researchers, vets, PhDs, virologists, zoological professionals have been trained by the staff at Lubee. So we do have a lot going on. And on that, I wanted to say thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about Lubee and some of our programs. And I don't know if there's time for questions, but if anybody has them, please let me know. Yes. Okay. Yep.
Thank you very much. Very informative. I have not been there yet, but now I'm going to come. What I wanted to ask, early in your presentation, I believe that there was a map, and if I understood that correctly, that was where bats are naturally located?
That was where our programs have been over our 35-year history. Bats are found everywhere except for extreme desert regions, very isolated islands, and then the polar regions as well. They are found everywhere.
Okay, so my question is, and forgive my ignorance, are bats native to the Florida, or were they brought in at different times from different people from different countries and places, or migrate?
That's actually a good question. So, you know, we have so many invasive species in Florida. Bats aren't one of them. They're one of the rare, because we know how bad Florida is. We have 13 species that are naturally native to Florida. The United States, we have about 46. Some of them do migrate, some of them don't. I'll try to make a long story short because I could nerd on this stuff all day. The Mexican free-tailed bats that are found in the University of Florida bat houses, they're found from the Midwest, west, all the way down to Central South America and Caribbean. There's a cave in Texas. I don't know, maybe some of you guys have heard of it, called Bracken Cave. There's 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats in that cave. It's one of the largest congregations of mammals anywhere in the world outside of humans. We also work with FWC. They have looked at every cave in the state of Florida, and not one individual Mexican free-tailed bat is found in those caves. So the subspecies that lives here, for whatever reason, they don't live in caves. We do have species that'll migrate through, but the subspecies of Mexican free-tailed bats, they don't migrate through here in Florida. They live here year-round, but they don't live in caves, which is pretty weird. They don't really know why. Although we got a great cave system in Florida, over 160.
Hi.
Hi.
I've had some bad experiences where they moved into the shutters in the window of a family camp. So I wanted to get a bat house and put it out there. Can you give me any tips? Because I don't want them back in the shutters, to get them to go to the bat house instead of the shutters.
Contact Lubee Bat Conservancy. I'll give you my card. But for anybody who wants to do it themselves, there are tips and tricks you could do for a successful bat house. Put it 20 feet in the air, face it southeast in the open area. So we have 7 bat houses at Lubee right now, about 3,000 to 5,000 bats in those houses. This is when we were kind of tinkering around with designs. They don't get 1 second of shade all year round, so they like it as hot as possible. So out in the open, 20 feet high, facing southeast, because that's going to kind of catch the sun and stained about a medium brown color. And we do have information on our website, lubee.org, about bat houses and all the other things we do. But yeah, there are tips and tricks you could do if you want to do it yourself for a successful bat house, or we could come out and work with you on that as well. Sir?
Fascinating presentation. Thank you. I'm coming out to see you sometime.
Look forward to it.
Bats got a bad reputation with the pandemic and COVID, and the allegation to start with that eating a bat in Wuhan caused the whole COVID. Let me ask you, can bats spread disease to humans like that, eating them or whatever?
So any mammal can spread diseases to humans. But let's talk about COVID in general. I think it's interesting that a pandemic was started in a city that happened to have a biomedical facility working on viruses. I will leave it at that. That's kind of interesting that it came out of there. Anyway, it didn't come out of like Omaha, Nebraska. It came out of a town, whatever. So the virus itself, SARS-CoV-2, they found a virus in what's called a Chinese horseshoe bat, 1 out of 1,420 plus species, back in 2013. It's called RATG13. Okay, it's 96% similar to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So from a DNA, RNA standpoint, I should say, there's not a lot of material there, but that's still a hell of a difference. So if you look at our genetics as opposed to a chimp's 96%, okay, if that tells you how similar we are. They have done experimental studies with bats. They gave SARS-CoV-2 to big brown bats at the National Wildlife Health Center, to Egyptian fruit bats at a facility over in Germany. In a Colorado state, they gave the virus right up their noses. I mean, this is how you're going to get it, to Jamaican fruit bats. These bats could not get that virus. There was a study done by UC Davis. It wasn't a study. They were looking at papers where SARS-CoV-2 attaches to our ACE2 receptors in our lungs. Okay, so they looked at 400 species, including humans and deer, carnivores, mostly mammals, although they did look at some bird and reptile species, and they looked at quite a few bat species. They know the morphology of that ACE2 receptor, and they know how the virus links with these receptors. Every one of the bats that they looked on there is low. They just can't get this virus. So unless they took a virus, unless somehow a virus was unnaturally altered to cause this, bats could not be the host for this because they simply can't get it. I hope that answers that question. I think where that virus come from says a lot. Whether they pulled that virus from a bat or from a pangolin, which if you don't know what a pangolin is, they're one of the most trafficked mammals in the world, very cute, called spiny yanners, or they pulled it from a civet or a genet or whatever these other unusual mammals are over there. Somehow that bat could not naturally have shifted to turn into that. Damn it, the original virus of 2013 could not morphologically shift into SARS-CoV-2. You just can't do it. So they have done the experiments with the bats, and they cannot get this virus. I get this question a lot. Feel free if you have more questions about it. I'm happy to answer it because of all the studies we've looked at where they just can't get it.
Thank you for your presentation. I raise raptors in Alachua County, and what came to mind is what are some of the natural predators for?
So whenever
bats?
we put up bat houses, we put up these plastic bird deterrents. So these spikes. It doesn't hurt the raptors, but it's a deterrent. So hawks, owls, around here will eat bats. Snakes will as well. There are some primates that will eat bats. Crocodiles over in Australia especially, these big salties and then the big freshwater crocs, they'll wait for these bats to skim over and they'll eat them. But I can say that the number one predator of bats is humans, without a doubt. Yeah, but the hawks and owls will eat them over here, yeah.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
Sure. It's actually, if anybody's been to University of Florida bat houses, the bats are cool. Watch the predators. Look up on those telephone lines and some of the other areas and just watch them wait for these bats. It's a really cool aerial display. When you see, so you got the big ones like these owls. They're not maneuverable enough to get the bats, so they'll just come in and bull rush them. But whenever our kites are coming through, so Mississippi kites and our swallowtail kites as well, if you watch these animals, they're a little bit more dexterous, and they'll actually follow the bats and hunt them. It's pretty cool to watch the display between the predators and the prey. But yeah, quite a bit here in Florida.
I have a multi-part question over here.
Yes.
In residential areas, average size and cost of a bat house, and have you encountered issues with, say, homeowners associations that won't allow them?
I don't deal with homeowner associations anymore. We had a big project, and I was told that the homeowner association was okay with us putting these bat houses in, and it was myself and another guy do all the bat houses. And I had another, we were putting in a couple of bat houses, and I was late getting there just because I had something, and he was white as a ghost because he had his homeowner coming out screaming at him saying he's going to sue us. And I don't want anything to do with liability. No. So homeowner associations, I let the folks handle that, and if I get the approval, I'm very careful with it. But cost, it really depends on where you're at, how far we have to travel. The house itself is a few hundred because it's made out of cedar, and these are big houses. But again, it depends on, a job in Macon is going to cost a little bit different here, but we have that information on our website as well, which is just simply lubee.org. But yeah, homeowner associations, telling us we're going to get sued whenever we got the okay was a little disconcerting.
Mike Conroy, I wanted to tell you, we had a bunch of kids last night for a preliminary round for our Rotary Youth Speech Contest, and we had some great kids. But your presentation today is one of the best, most organized, intelligent presentations I think I've ever heard. You really know your stuff. And NPR is running a series daily on the impact of man on species around the world. One of the things they were discussing in the morning is the dearth of insects in the world. How does that impact your bats? I should imagine greatly.
As in, let me make sure I'm hearing this right. You're talking decreasing insect species? It's affecting everything. So if you look at it just globally, the animals that are getting affected the most, if we're looking at keystone species that are ecosystem health indicators, your insects, including your bees, your birds, and your bats. And whenever you see those numbers going down, it tells you how our ecosystem is, how our natural or local and global habitats are doing. I remember years ago, I think it's 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, study out in Germany, and they were going out in these fields, and they're saying, we have 25% of the insect species, not only the species, but the sheer volume that we had 10 years ago. 10 years, it was a 75% drop just in these fields. And it's just like with the bees, and I'm sure you guys have heard of colony collapse disorder. There are a lot of different variables that are causing that, and everything is connected. Everything starts, to go from the microbes up, but if we're going to start at insects, as insects are affected, everything else is affected, including humans, our crops that we depend on, that sort of thing. That's one of the good things about bats, though, is they are eating a lot of mosquitoes, and they're eating a lot of agricultural pests as well. And that's why we get a lot of, we do a lot of work with ranchers, farmers, and with the ranchers themselves, whether it's cattle or they have horses. God knows we're in horse territory. Here in Marion County, we put up a lot of houses. They love having the bats around because anything that's flying at night, if it's going to be some kind of biting fly as well, bats are going to go after them. I will say this, people ask, what about bees? We have an apiary. They never even come across each other. Those bees are active during the day, bats are active at night, and bats know not to eat anything with venom and a stinger. They usually stay away from that.
Brian, 2 questions from Zoom. First one is from Jenny. Do you work with Santa Fe Zoo, their students, and is there any crossover with them?
Quite a few of our staff members came from Santa Fe. My wife went through the program in 1997. So yeah, we work a lot with Santa Fe, and we do internships with their students as well. Yeah, we've been doing those for, even before I got there, I think we've been doing it probably for about 20 years now. So we do a lot of crossover with them. Plus we do events together. And plus they're just really good personal friends of ours as well.
Yeah. Excellent, Brian. One more question from Zoom, again from Jenny. Do species of bats live together happily, or do they cluster by species?
That is a great question. So the University of Florida bat houses, there are 3, possibly 4 species that live all together in there. There's one in particular species, it's called a tricolored bat. It's our smallest bat in Florida. They're tiny little things, they're very cute. They're solitary, but they will live with hundreds of thousands of these Mexican free-tailed bats. They just don't want to be with their own kind. So they're solitary, you know, but not really, because they live with all, again, in the University of Florida bat house, hundreds of thousands of bats. They just don't like their own kind, except out of one time a year whenever they got to get together and do their breeding rituals, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But yeah, there are species. And at Lubee, we have a lot of our exhibits that we have, there are multiple species in them, that they just seem to get along. They're social animals. They like to be around other bats, and they do readily interact. But there are, I mean, we have solitary species here in Florida that we call them the tree bats. So they're big, kind of fluffy bats, and they're solitary. So it really just depends on the species and whether they live together.
John Gregory, I'm wondering if you could tell me the different sizes of the bats.
In Florida or just in general?
In general.
Okay, so the smallest mammal in the world is called a bumblebee bat, Kitty's hognose bat, and it lives over in Thailand, maybe more. They're just so hard to find. They're about as big as the first joint on your thumb. So they're absolutely tiny. Some people, I think, look like a moth whenever they fly by. And then you have the largest species of bat, and that's at Lubee. So our biggest one right now, his name's Calvin, and he has a 5.5-foot wingspan. So our bats get annual physicals every year, and in order to do that, we have to anesthetize them. So we give them a little isoflurane, and we put him out. And this last year, we measured him, and he is 5.5 feet. So you got smallest species, your little bumblebee bats, and then the Malayan flying foxes. By the way, bumblebee bats are insect eaters, and your Malayan flying foxes, we have 54 at Lubee, 5.5-foot wingspan, and those are fruit-eating bats. Yeah, absolutely monsters. And whenever you come out to Lubee, I will say this, for private tours, because we get big groups, we just can't do it, or unless it's one of our kind of special events, we take you in with the bats. So you are face-to-face with these giants, and they could really care less about you unless you have fruit. I mean, then they're going to interact with you. So we let people feed them with on like little skewers and stuff like that. And then we have these very sophisticated bat scratchers, which is a dowel rod and a toothbrush taped to it. And you can go up and scratch the bats, and they seem to enjoy it, you know. But you can definitely interact with them. I mean, this is another thing. I just did, it was International Bat Appreciation Day last Thursday, and I was on TikTok and whatever social media channels, and it's cool because I was right next to one of actually it was Calvin, our biggest bat, and to see the comments about, he's just shocked at how big this bat is, and people are thinking, man, that thing is a vampire bat, it's gonna rip your neck off. I'm like, can you not see the cantaloupe that I'm giving this bat, you know? But there is definitely a huge size difference, but like I said, you come out to Lubee, you'll really gain an appreciation for how big these guys are, but they're just very calm, gentle animals that, you know, but they definitely interact with you, which is pretty cool. Sir.
Ed Ellett with a homeowner with a house on the bluff of Paynes Prairie. Question. If you install a bat house at your house, would you notice a difference in the mosquito population?
We have, I mentioned, that's a great question. We have the 7 houses out at Lubee, and we've got a lot of water features around us, and our staff member, Tim, lives on property, and there's just nothing. I mean, he doesn't have to deal with any mosquitoes, really anything that flies at night. In Kanapaha Prairie, if anybody lives around there, we put in 7 houses around Kanapaha Prairie, and there is one individual in general who he has a lot of livestock at his place. I think he has pigs and horses, and he said he saw the mosquito and the biting fly population decrease by about 80% because of the bat houses that we put up near his property and then around Kanapaha Prairie as well. So there's definitely a noticeable difference whenever you put up a bat house. It's just what they do. So they'll eat that area, you know, eat the insects in that area, and they'll fly for a couple miles. What's pretty cool is they'll continuously fly at night. I mean, they won't stop. It's just continuously eating, and then come back as the sun is rising.
Brian, thank you. What? No more questions.
An anonymous question from Zoom about which movie character of Batman is his favorite, but we don't have time today.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Good. Yeah.
Kristen Bale. Kristen Bale, everybody. Did you hear it?
Okay.
Kristen Bale. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Brian, thank you so much. And in honor of you being here today, we're going to make a donation to the Bread of the Mighty in your name to thank you for your enlightening presentation. And also, just so everybody knows, TJ did reach out to Lubee while we were in the meeting, and he's trying to set up a tour so that we'll try to have a fun and fellowship out there, hopefully in the next month or so. So you'll be hearing more about that once we get that scheduled. I did forget one thing at the announcements. The Civics Challenge, I mentioned that we were a sponsor of that. That occurred last week. Michael Pellett was a judge. We did get a very nice thank you note from the League of Women Voters for our participation, and there were some great news coverage of that event with the kids at Lincoln Middle School that won the challenge, but a number of kids participated in that. So I encourage you to check that out and know that we had a part in that. The speaker for next week, just to remind everybody, it's our very own Ian Fletcher will be giving us a State of the Chamber update, so join us for that. Quote of the day, we have advice from a bat. Trust your senses, spend time just hanging around with friends, get a grip, enjoy the nightlife, sometimes you've just got to wing it, and guano happens. And that's by Alano Shamir. And the final piece of business for today is the Rotary Reading Safari number, and today it is 608. 608 is today's number, and meeting is adjourned.